What could be better than getting to dress up as Iron Man and fly around a soundstage for a few weeks? Well, how about being paid the GDP of a small European country to do it? Brie Larson has had an interesting career to say the least, and her journey from indie darling to Oscar-winning superhero star is certainly one to envy.
Higher, further, faster, baby.
2019 was the year she dove headfirst into the MCU as Carol Danvers, with her Captain Marvel debut followed only a month later by a supporting role in Avengers Endgame. Larson also has the distinction of being the first female lead to get her own MCU film. The MCU's initial approach when it brought new actors into the fold was to give them extremely modest upfront salaries for their solo debuts. Some sources suggest that most of the Avengers only got six-figure paydays for their first outings, profit sharing notwithstanding. This would come with the promise, however, that their salary would grow exponentially on subsequent projects. By 2019, the MCU had already produced multiple movies with billion-dollar global box office hauls, so those debut paychecks were becoming a lot more generous than they used to be. The result, Larson reportedly earned an impressive $5 million up front for Captain Marvel, despite the movie being her very first MCU outing. Many MCU actors secured their biggest payday on Avengers Endgame, a movie that turned multiple people into millionaires pretty much just for showing up. Others, however, hit the big bucks after starring in a post-Endgame Marvel project. For Chris Pratt, the highest of his known upfront salaries for a single MCU movie was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, for which he reportedly earned a cool $7 million.
Are you mocking me? Are you mocking me? Stop it, you just didn't do it again.
Guardians Volume 3 marked Pratt's seventh time playing Peter Quill on screen, having appeared in two previous Guardians movies, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Thor Love and Thunder, and Disney Plus's Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Even if the upfront payouts for those films were more modest than Volume 3, they no doubt add up to an impressive fortune, and that's saying nothing of any back-end deals that were made in regards to profits. Notably, two of those movies made it into the billion-dollar club, which means that even the most reserved of royalty deals would have paid out nicely for Pratt. If you weren't already steeped in Marvel Comics lore, you may not have expected much from Doctor Strange when the character made his MCU debut in 2016. So imagine the surprise of casual MCU fans when Stephen Strange became one of the most pivotal figures in the events of the franchise's third and fourth phases.
We're in the endgame now.
Doctor Strange certainly got one of the more creative MCU entries with his second solo movie, 2022's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Sam Raimi's schlocky horror fest pulled double duty as a follow-up to not only Strange's story from Spider-Man No Way Home, but also the events of the Disney Plus series WandaVision, setting up an epic showdown between Strange and the Scarlet Witch. It also set Cumberbatch himself up quite nicely, earning the actor a reported $7.5 million upfront salary for his sixth appearance as the character. While the MCU has always had its lighter moments, it wasn't until Phase 2 that the franchise began to produce full-blown action comedies. Following Guardians of the Galaxy in that regard was 2015's Ant-Man, a project built around the correct assumption that nobody was ever going to accept a straight-faced movie about a guy who rides on ants. Hammering home this approach was the casting of Paul Rudd, an actor who had been in a few action movies before, but was typically relegated to playing the wisecracking sidekick or something of that ilk. It was a bold choice, and a good one. Rudd has since led an entire trilogy of Ant-Man movies, which have together earned some $1.6 billion at the global box office. Yet it wasn't any of those projects that earned Rudd his highest-known individual payday. That distinction belongs to his appearance in Avengers Endgame, in which Rudd reportedly brought home a whopping $8 million up front. Rudd being two movies deep in his own solo series at the time probably helped, as did the fact that he had co-written those two films. Until the release of Deadpool and Wolverine in 2024, Rudd was actually the only MCU star to have been credited as a writer on any of the franchise's movies. Someone who can both lead and write hugely successful blockbuster movies is clearly someone you want to keep happy, and big paydays go a long way toward doing just that. The MCU's version of Spider-Man made his official debut in 2016's Captain America: Civil War.
You got hard, kid. Where you from?
Queens?
Brooklyn.
Then in 2017, Tom Holland made his first standalone Spidey outing in Spider-Man: Homecoming, a movie that launched the MCU's most profitable non-Avengers film series. This led Holland to receive a reported $10 million upfront payday for the third movie in that series. No surprise either, as Spider-Man: No Way Home still remains the third highest-grossing MCU movie, behind only Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Holland will of course return for 2026's Spider-Man: Brand New Day, and it's likely that he made even more money for that one. Disney would certainly do well to keep him happy too, as he's clearly a big box office draw, and as one of the franchise's youngest major stars, he's able to keep returning to the franchise for many more years to come. It took a little while for the MCU to put Hawkeye to good use, but they got there in the end, and Jeremy Renner was quite literally all the richer for it. Renner reportedly scored a $15 million salary for playing Hawkeye in Avengers Endgame, which also gave him the chance to showcase his dramatic acting chops in some of the movie's most powerful scenes.
Don't.
Don't what?
Don't give me hope.
$15 million plus whatever royalty deals Renner must have signed for Endgame, to say nothing of what he earned on previous movies, is no small fortune. And it must feel pretty satisfying for a guy whose first paid acting gig was playing criminals in police training videos. Notably, Renner is also the kind of actor who knows his worth. He famously turned down an offer to return for a second season of the Disney Plus series Hawkeye, claiming he was only offered half of what he'd made for season 1. That said, Renner suggested he'd be happy to appear in season 2 as recently as September 2025. So Clint Barton may not be out of the game just yet. Better get your wallet out, Kevin. Chris Evans had one major worry about taking the role of Captain America, that it would mean that he could no longer enjoy the private life he'd enjoyed up until that point. And while that fear has clearly come true, it's fair to say that Evans has been justly compensated for it. Evans played Steve Rogers in multiple MCU projects, from the character's initial solo movie all the way through Steve's touching farewell in Avengers Endgame. For Cap's quote-unquote final MCU appearance, Evans reportedly took home an upfront fee of between $15 and $20 million.
That is America's ass.
And there could be yet more money in his future. Evans continues to publicly insist that he won't be involved in Avengers Doomsday, despite the fact that, well, come on. No doubt his inevitable appearances in Doomsday and Secret Wars will come with a very comfortable payday indeed, no matter how significant or insignificant those appearances may be. Not a bad trade-off for all that attention, don't you think? Over the years, Thor became so popular that he led no fewer than 4 solo MCU movies, a feat that even Iron Man never pulled off. This makes it easy, though, to forget how risky it was to give the character his own movie to begin with. Thor was the least well-known Avenger to the mainstream film-going audience back in the late 2000s. He also has the weirdest powers and backstory of the team's original 6 members, and he was played by an actor who, outside of Australia, was the least famous out of any of the Phase 1 leads. Nowadays, of course, Chris Hemsworth is a fully-fledged Hollywood A-lister, and so he joined the MCU's vaunted $20 million club when he took home his fee for the 4th Thor film. Love and Thunder was hardly a hit with fans, and even Hemsworth himself has said that the movie's comedic elements were taken a little too far. Yet no one would disagree that he had more than earned that colossal paycheck, given all he had done to build the MCU up to that point, and how successfully he sold the public on a magical Norse superhero god. Hemsworth's performances in these movies deserve a huge amount of credit for opening up the more fantastical side of the franchise. It's no exaggeration to say that Thor walked so that Doctor Strange, Wanda Maximoff, and Captain Marvel could run, or fly, or shoot glowing energy bolts, or whatever. The fact that it took 11 whole years after her MCU debut for Natasha to get a Black Widow movie only speaks further to how badly the franchise failed her. Still, the fact that Scarlett Johansson made $20 million for that movie probably eased some of the sour feelings she might have had about her character's earlier problems. Unfortunately, this reckoning was short-lived. Johansson later brought a lawsuit against Disney, alleging that the company brought Black Widow to Disney Plus too quickly and thus damaged the movie's box office potential. Notably, Johansson had made a deal to receive more money based on its performance. While the lawsuit settlement was kept private, some estimates suggest that it may have doubled her initial $20 million payday, and that doesn't include whatever royalties she had already received for the movie's $380 million worldwide box office haul. Jon Favreau rarely gets the credit he deserves for the work he did to establish the tone of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As the director of Iron Man, Favreau laid the groundwork for how the whole franchise would look and feel going forward. Perhaps most significantly, though, he went to bat for Robert Downey Jr. to play the lead in the film, and it's hard to overstate the impact that performance has had on the MCU since then.
I am Iron Man.
It will come as no surprise to learn that Downey Jr. has become very, very wealthy thanks to the MCU. He's said to have made at least $75 million on Avengers Endgame alone, a fee that includes his upfront salary plus the deal he negotiated for back-end royalty payments from the movie's stunning box office performance. It's been reported that he had similar deals in place for most of his other MCU films, meaning he would have earned many millions off the back of their success. If you want to put a final figure on it, in 2024, Variety reported that Downey Jr. has earned somewhere between $500 and $600 million for his work in the MCU to date. And he's not even finished yet. It's highly likely that he has royalty deals in place for his return to the franchise in Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, and that's saying nothing of his upfront fee. In that same 2024 article, Variety revealed that the figure could surpass the $80 million mark, adding that people familiar with the deal has suggested it could land closer to $95 million. So yeah, not a bad haul for a hard day's work.